It's become a sort of tradition for me that every Friday night, I turn off the lights and play some Dead by Daylight. I've put a lot of time into the game at this point, although compared to some diehards, my almost 200 hours sounds like child's play. Like the movie? It was a horror joke? Whatever. The asymmetric horror game is an interesting one in the fact that it's not always that scary. There are so many variables at work that it's impossible that every match is as scary as the last. But that's why I'm here, to help make the game as scary as you want it to be. I'm going to attempt to look at the variables that are within a player's control and shift them around for optimal horror. Those variables are perks, items, and survivors. I'm going to say right off the bat, playing with friends can make the game more fun, but it definitely makes things less scary. Also, playing killer isn't scary, it's more stressful and aggravating than anything else. I'm gonna play 4 games with each of the 4 original survivors, Dwight, Jake, Meg, and Claudette. This way I can get samples from 2 male survivors and 2 female survivors. The only reason that I factor that in is I think that male survivors have a louder pain grunt than female, but I don't actually know for sure. The first game will feature fully decked out characters with perks and items. The next will be with perks but no items. Then no perks but items, and finally nothing at all. Since this is starting to sound more and more like a science experiment, I'm gonna hypothesize that the scariest way to play the game will be with a male survivor and no items and no perks. Last thing before I get into the experiment, I want to just address the things that are out of my control. I can't control what killer I'm up against and how good of a player they are, but based on my ranking, I'm hoping that any killer should be competent. I also can't control the skill levels of the other survivors on my team, so we really gotta hope for the best there. And finally, I have very limited control over what map we're on. I can affect it using items, but I'm just gonna leave it up to fate. I'll touch more on how these impacted my fear levels after the tests. Alright, let's do this shit. I went into the first tests with a bit of confidence. Fully loaded with perks and items, I felt good. I was overconfident. I couldn't use the same perks on every character, but I did make sure to use the perk Spine Chill, mainly because I thought it would be a common perk that could detract from the horror of the game, seeing as it shows you if the killer is looking in your direction. It mostly allowed me to do some good sneaking around, but there were still a few times I managed to get my heart racing, particularly in chases more than close calls. In the end, my cockiness got to me and I died every time. I could have survived the Dwight game, but I went for a rescue and wound up on the hook. Overall, I give perks and items a 6 spooky out of 10. I'm not gonna lie, these were some truly aggravating games. Lots of being chased down by the killer and left on the ground, some truly insane turning maneuvers by the Oni, and just getting beaten down over and over again. Not bringing in items did make the games harder at the start, but thankfully I was able to find chests when I needed them and managed to keep myself alive a little longer than I thought. 3 games ended in despair. Worst of all was the fucking game against the gunslinger where I was on top of the hatch and he still got me right as it was opening. But at the end of the day, I finally survived with Jake and actually had a really good game against the Wrath. These games were definitely more frustrating than scary, so I'd have to give them a 4 spooky out of 10. The third set of tests was a doozy. I was really worried seeing as I had no perks, but some wild shit went down. I'm gonna walk through the games because holy crap. So my first game was with Dwight, and I brought a medkit. That seemed ideal because I had no perks. I was against the cannibal, and I led him on what might be the best chase I've ever had in a Dead by Daylight game. And all with 0 perks. Fuck it, I'm gonna play the chase in its entirety because it was so good. But the best part about that game, I actually survived. Cause who needs perks anyway? My second game was with Meg, and I actually got matched with two of the same people from the last game. I think they were queued together. I'm gonna say it now. Even if Dead by Daylight isn't always scary, one killer is scarier than all the others, and that is the Hag. She literally has a built-in jump scare mechanic. And I ran into it a lot of times. And it scares me every time. But once again, I survived another game. The third game was with Claudette, and I was against the Krugster himself. The game went fairly well up until the end when I was the only one to die, but the real reason this game is notable? Fucking glitches. This character on the hook floated out of the killer's basement and was hanging in mid-air. The best part is the look Fang Min and I give each other. My final game of Test 3 with Jake Park sucked. I got downed and hooked right away, and no one saved me until I was in my second state of dying. And then the rest of the game was just close calls with death. But fuck it, it still got my heart racing. These games were definitely the scariest so far, and I'm excited to see what the final test brings. I give the no perks but items test an 8 spooky out of 10. I thought my last game with Jake sucked, but this was a whole new level of suckage. Playing with nothing at all meant I had no tactical advantage or survival advantage in any way. I had no way to outrun killers or to speed up healing or repairs. It just overall sucked. I survived one game with Meg, so I guess that's a thing. I also had to record 2 games with Jake because in the first one, the killer just wanted to farm points. Which brings me to a point I'd like to make. They really need to fix the Huntress's hitboxes. My second game with Jake, I was up against her, and she kept hitting these absurd hatchet throws, some of which didn't even hit me. But whatever. All I gotta say about playing with nothing is don't do it. It sucks out any of the fun there is in the game, and it makes it a living hell. I'm gonna have to give it a 3 spooky out of 10, which is higher than I would have, but the spirit did get a good jump scare on me, so credit where credit is due, I guess. Well, the tests are finally done. In the end, I think my hypothesis doesn't even matter. Fear in this game seems to be more about the killer you're up against than anything else, and there's no way you can control that. I did actually have some fun playing with just items. It was a different experience and one I might try again, but playing with nothing at all is just a stressful nightmare, so it ain't worth trying. The Dead by Daylight science experiment was a flop, but at least I had a bit of fun along the way. In the process of making this video, I have played so much Dead by Daylight, and I really think I need to take a break from it for a while. Or maybe I'll just play the game the way it's meant to be played. That's probably the best option. Anywho, thank you so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe for a new video every week and tune into my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/Triceratops_Jr. on Friday nights at 8 p.m. for some live Dead by Daylight. Alright, peace out y'all. I'll catch you on the flip side.